Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts in Edmonton. It's been exactly 1 month since residents of Enterprise and Hay River were told to leave their communities immediately. Few instructions came with the evacuation order other than drive to Alberta. Now, those residents know when they'll be able to get back home to the Northwest Territories. For folks from Hay River, the return is set to start on Sunday. Now, that date could change if it's decided it's not yet safe. Crews will meet on Friday to assess the risks. Council, will meet on Friday to assess the risks. The town says containment efforts have reduced the fire risk to the community. Essential workers started returning today, and pre-registration is now open for re-entry flights into Hay River. Residents must register by 8 p.m. tomorrow. Flights will not be booked until the re-entry date has been confirmed. Enterprise residents whose homes are still standing will likely be able to return to the community 3 to 4 days after Hay River. For those who lost their homes to the wildfire, the mayor says he's looking for housing in Hay River. Mayor Michael St. Amour toured Enterprise this week. He says the power grid is gone and it's causing delays. The mayor says another reason the re-entry is on hold is that all of the services for his community come from Hay River. 90% of Enterprise was destroyed by wildfire last month. Not expecting compensation, but unable to abandon the call of duty. Hay River's volunteer firefighters have been on the ground for the last 4 weeks, protecting the community as wildfires rapidly approach. They work alongside equipment operators, fire specialists, and wildland firefighters. They're all highly trained, and their objective to save the community is the same as the career firefighters. But their compensation is not. Carla Ulrich has that story.
This is Hay River's third mass evacuation in 15 months. It was the devastating flood last year, and this year, wildfires. When volunteer firefighters responded to last year's flood, they made $25. That is the flat rate they received per call. However, during the fire evacuation in May, the town increased their compensation by paying them $1,000 for their work. However, some firefighters are saying the increase in calls and climate change emergencies is highlighting a need for a review of that compensation. To put it into perspective, that's $1,000 for 3 weeks of 12 to 15-hour work days. One volunteer firefighter who asked not to be named out of concern about retribution said, "The Hay River Fire Department is made up of incredible and extremely selfless people, which is probably why the system hasn't changed." Changes are coming, though. Hay River Senior Administrative Officer Glenn Smith said that the volunteer firefighters who stayed in the community for the last 4 weeks will be compensated with an hourly wage, and the town is doing a review to determine if they should increase their compensation rates. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Grand Prairie.
Smoke continues to blanket the NWT. There are air quality warnings in place for communities from Fort Smith all the way up to Norman Wells. Even Kugluktuk has a warning. This is what it looked like in Yellowknife today. Along with the smoke, you can see the leaves are changing colors, a sure sign of fall. And it's a time when kids are normally getting back to class. Schools in Yellowknife will start tomorrow. And as Julia Wong shows us, they're still working on getting back to normal.
For Melody Shaw, it's been a journey to make it to the top of this playground mountain.
It's been a little bit cuckoo.
After weeks away, her family is back in Yellowknife and ready for a bit of normalcy.
I'm looking forward to it for sure. Getting back to work and going to school is super important, and we need a routine for sure.
At this Yellowknife school, crews are scrambling to finish laying down flooring before students come back Thursday, a project put on hold during the evacuation. They're also checking on air filters as smoke from nearby wildfires continues to hang over the northern capital.
We do have HEPA filters in pretty much all of the classrooms. We're going through trying to get filters changed with that and ordering new filters for them.
Build those relationships with their kids as soon as they come in.
On top of that, staff will be paying extra attention to how students may be feeling.
Yeah, right now we're just focusing on really having a calm, relaxing start.
What's really important is just to give the kids the space to talk about their own story.
And it's not just schools.
We're getting really close to our full service capacity.
At Yellowknife's hospital, more inpatient beds have opened, and the emergency room and pediatric units are up and running. But labor and delivery is still suspended, and patients sent to Alberta and BC need to be flown back.
What are the care needs of all of those people today? When is it safe in their medical trajectory to move them?
It's one of the more high-risk devices.
Staff have also been assessing equipment.
We did the preventive maintenance check on all the anesthesia machines because electromechanical devices do not like sitting unused for 3 weeks. We checked out all the dialysis machines.
Staffing levels are almost back to normal, but the hospital, normally bustling, is not quite there yet.
The halls are empty and people are not around, and so it's a little bit eerie sometimes.
It likely won't be eerie for too much longer. Officials say most services will be back up and running within 7 to 10 days, but it could be at least another 3 weeks before the hospital is completely back to normal. Julia Wong, CBC News, Yellowknife.
You just heard Julia say that obstetrics is still suspended. We do have an update about that tonight for you. Northwest Territories Health and Social Services says obstetrics will open again tomorrow. It says pregnant people will be contacted to talk about the next steps. Let's dive deeper into what specific health services are and are not available right now. It's still emergency surgeries only this week, though bookings for elective surgeries are expected to resume next week. For chemotherapy and dialysis, those are both available again. Chemotherapy reopened on Monday, dialysis reopened today. Now, there are still a reduced number of intensive care unit beds. Health and Social Services reports that the ICU is about 75% capacity right now. And finally, the Sobering Center and Day Shelter are both back up and running at full capacity. That includes overnight stays at the Sobering Center and meals at the Day Shelter. Getting the hospital back up and running is a big job and one that takes time. When it came to the evacuations, though, there was little time to get everyone out. So what does it take to empty an entire hospital in a hurry? Janie Neudorf is a nurse practitioner who had a big role in the evacuation of the hospital. She took care of the off-site staging, the pop-up field hospital that was created to help patients transition from hospital to plane. She describes how it all worked.
Because we have planned and gone through emergencies in the past, having that crisis mode in the past has helped us be prepared for something like this. However, it was a historic day. We have never had a code green for this building. And you know, usually when you're doing an evacuation, you're evacuating from one floor to the next floor, or you're moving from one facility to a facility down the road. And this was on a completely different level where you're evacuating an entire hospital out of the territories into other provinces. We looked at a number of things, like who was stretcher bound, who was ambulatory. So our patients like dialysis and chemo patients, we tried to move them relatively early because they were ambulatory, and we could put them on aircraft with a physician and be able to go. They would be able to leave like that. Other times with our stretcher bound patients, they were a little more complex, obviously, because we had to move them off-site from here, stage them. We used the D&D hangar, and out there we actually set that up like a field hospital. So we created areas looking at that. So it's a huge hangar space. You've got aircraft on one side, and they emptied out the other side of the hangar for us. But really, we just designated areas like this is where we're going to offload our incoming patients from the hospital. We registered them and then admitted them to an army cot. So there were, like, each cot had a wool blanket and a pillow. We tried to create areas like where our crash cart was, where our medications were able to use that from there, because we continued their care. Their care didn't stop when they left the building. Their care continued all the way through until we released them onto the aircraft. One thing I said to my team out there is that that. You know, this is hopefully once in a lifetime opportunity, but you'll take the lessons that we learned that day and you'll be able to apply it to other things that come up, whether it's, you know, we see floods here in the territory, as wildfires or other evacuations or outbreaks of things. You know, we've gone from the pandemic and now a huge evacuation, which is historic for this city to be evacuated. So I think there's so many good lessons and pearls that we can take from what we learned here and just keep applying it and be better next time.
To a different kind of fire in British Columbia, this was the scene in Atlin yesterday afternoon. The old historic hotel burning to the ground. Witnesses that spoke to the CBC say it was destroyed by the fire in just 45 minutes and that it was still burning this morning. The tiny community has seen a lot of fires in the last year. Last September, the post office burned down. There's also been house and shed fires. No official word on what caused this latest one. A community-wide tuberculosis screening clinic was set to begin in Pangaktu, Nunavut this week, but weather delayed the flight carrying health staff. The clinic's goal is to test as many people as possible on a voluntary basis, but some people have concerns about how the government of Nunavut is handling the situation. The CBC's Emily Hawes explains.
Pangaktu has been struggling with TB for years. An outbreak was declared in November 2021. And since January of that same year, 40 people were diagnosed with active cases. And in another 187, the disease was latent. Some people in the community are concerned about how the GN has addressed the situation. Mayor Eric Lawler says he would like to see more specific case count information.
One of the things I've been requesting is they update with treated cases as well. They don't update us with those who went through treatment. So every time we see the report, we see 35, 38 people with active TB, and we still think, a lot of them still think that's still active within the community.
Some community members also want to know why case counts are only updated quarterly. Nunavut Health Minister John Main says it's an effort to balance transparency and privacy protection. But there are also logistical challenges that he's asked the federal government to help tackle.
One of the things that we're dealing with as a department and that, you know, is holding us back in terms of public health is the lack of public health surveillance system, which is a database that exists in most other jurisdictions in Canada.
Overall, the clinic is expected to have between 5 and 15 staff, depending on the needs of each phase, and is expected to cost up to $4 million, split among the federal government, the GN, and NTI. It will run until December 1st, with each household being contacted to come for screening. Emily Hawes, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The Transportation Safety Board has closed its file on the plane crash in Iqaluit last week. It says no further investigation is needed. According to a summary report from the TSB, the Cessna 172 was flying from Kuujjuaq to Iqaluit on September 4th. The plane was operated by the Turkish Airlines Flight Academy. The report says that the weather deteriorated during the initial approach and the plane was too high to complete the landing. The pilot then climbed to a higher altitude and flew an erratic route as air traffic controllers tried to communicate with him. About 25 minutes later, the pilot realigned himself with the runway before crashing about 2 kilometers from the runway. The report adds that the pilot was the plane's only occupant. He suffered minor injuries. Homelessness continues to rise in Whitehorse at an alarming rate. The Reaching Home Community Advisory Board and the Safe at Home Society conducted surveys of the homeless population earlier this year. They found that on the night of April 18th, 197 people were experiencing homelessness in Whitehorse. That is 30% higher than the last time this survey was done in 2021.
It's indicative that we're not breaking the cycles of homelessness, and we also know that shelters alone are not going to prevent homelessness. People are using shelters in greater numbers, and until we get our system into a space where people are using shelters as an emergency and are being diverted from shelters into permanent and stable housing, we are going to continue this cycle.
More than half of the people surveyed say they've been homeless for a full 12 months. Whitehorse has seen explosive population growth in the recent years. Craig says the increase in homelessness is far outpacing the population boom. It's no secret that life has become quite expensive over the last few months, but there are programs aimed at alleviating financial stress. A free laundry night in Whitehorse is one of them, and Virginie Ann takes us there.
Having to choose between groceries or clean clothes is a position that nobody wants to be in, but it is one that lately more people are finding themselves confronted with. In order to reduce people's expenses, Yukon Employees Union has been offering a free laundry night right here.
We see an absolutely broad selection of our society coming here. There's no single demographic that this affects or impacts solely. This really is an unmet need. Families who don't have laundry in their home, in their unit, have to take their clothes to the laundromat. And the cost is very, very high. It's up to $10 for a load of laundry. And so if you are on a tight budget, and everyone is on a tight budget right now, that can really, really impact your ability to pay bills, put food on the table. So what we've found is so many people who come here tell us that being able to do their laundry for free once a month, they can put a bit more food in their cupboards and fill the fridge. So that's very meaningful.
Ask around and everyone here agrees with Turner Davis. This man is no exception. Like many Yukoners, his home is serviced by trucked water. He too has seen life becoming more expensive.
Well, I live on North Klondike Highway past the power grid on Stockley Road. So I do use 1,000 liters about 10 days. So doing laundry here saves me a couple hundred liters. It makes a big difference. And you get to socialize, you know. And like the savings is a big help. It saves me, I don't know, $100. Yeah. So it's $100 in your pocket is good. For food, for my daughter, for school stuff.
Yukon Employees Union holds the event every second Tuesday every month. It's not just about having clean socks, it's about building community and self-esteem. Virginie Ann, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A proposed complex which would feature an elders' residence in Iqaluit is one step closer to reality. Last night, Iqaluit City Councillors moved forward in rezoning the land that's been picked to house the facility.
In my mind, it's really supported by Iqaluit, and not just from the organizations, but I hear from the general public on the streets how much they support it and how much they need that building because there's so much homelessness.
The 47-unit building would also include a restaurant, a daycare, and space for the Hunters and Trappers Association. At the same meeting, Iqaluit sled dog owners and supporters were speaking out. They want to stay at their current location at West 40, and they don't want any new development there. The city is looking at rezoning the area as it develops the future of West 40. Some of the changes would formally allow dog areas in industrial zones and ensure the dog area is at least 500 meters away from residential and commercial areas.
We don't want to move, and we don't want to have to make it open to other developers or other associations, organizations. We want to ensure that this just continues to remain the dog team area permanently.
The two bylaws related to the West 40 land development have been deferred to a future council meeting so city staff can make amendments.
May I guess your taste? Not wrong to have ambition. Don't let fear hold you back.
You don't let them win.
You're gonna see things you'll never forget. They look so beautiful together. You are our tomorrow.
When it comes to protecting the world's cuddliest creatures,
We just got a 911 on a bear in a hot tub.
you'll need animal control.
Did he turn the jets on?
Watch all episodes now.
We're ready to go when you need to know. Good morning. I'm Heather Hiscox. We begin with breaking news.
To see from behind us here how big the fire is. You're giving me the hard questions.
Yes, I found Canadians. Start your day with us on CBC Morning Live.
A Sunny Ryack man is hoping to be the first deaf person in his community to get his driver's license. Tyrone Upbuck is already the first person without hearing to get his learner's permit. He did it with the help of his sign language teacher, who's been working with him since elementary school.
Grade 6 week began.
Since he was in grade 6, I have been teaching him sign language up until he graduated high school. I was asked if I want to teach him to get a driver's license. I've agreed to teach him so he can become a successful driver.
Upbuck will do a road test without Pikuyak this week. If he passes, he'll get his full license, a first for a deaf man in Sunny Ryack. Pump tracks are becoming increasingly popular across Canada, and today the City of Whitehorse officially opened a new one. It's in the Copper Ridge neighborhood, and the CBC's Cheryl Kawaja is there. Cheryl, what makes this park stand out?
Megan, this new pump track is pretty fancy. The City of Whitehorse brought in experts to design this pump track. It's quite a new fad across Canada. The kids have to try to get around the track without using their pedals, just kind of pushing their bikes through. It's designed for bikes, skateboards, and scooters, and today it's the official kickoff, and even the mayor got in on the action.
There had been a dirt pump track before, which was quite popular, but it was very hard to maintain, and as some of the kids were telling me today, it just didn't sort of hold up and it was a bit crappy. So we saw that there was a lot of interest in this thing, and we don't have one. We don't have one that's done like this. So we said, let's do it. There's lots of kids in the neighborhood, as you can see.
And while today is the official opening, the city's kids haven't been able to stay away. The track has been seeing lots of action over the last few weeks. It's pretty popular.
It's really fun and has lots of good bumps and turns. I like the hills.
Now there are some rules here at the pump track. For example, kids have to wear a helmet and they're supposed to go one at a time, but as you can see, not everybody's following that rule, but I think everybody is certainly having a lot of fun. Megan?
Looks awesome. Thank you so much, Cheryl. That's the CBC's Cheryl Kawaja in Whitehorse. In Montreal, the city is looking for ways to use its parks to help lessen the effects of climate change. It's designing some green spaces with features that act as sponges to help avoid flooding after heavy rainfall. The CBC's Kwabena Oduro has more.
I'm at Park Dickey Moore, and this is one of the parks that the City of Montreal has built to help with water retention and prevent flooding in the area. There are 6 of these around the island, and they're looking to build more. Let's find out how it works.
So as you can see right now, the water is flowing on the surface and into the retention pond that is also called a rain garden. So the function of this is to store and infiltrate all this rainwater.
On a day like today, when it's been raining on and off, you can basically see how the sponge park works. It absorbs up the water and it alleviates pressure from the sewer system.
You can see that the street brings all the rainwater into those gutters. When the water is in the gutter, it then goes into a sewer, into a pipe, and then inside the park in those retention ponds. With climate change, we are seeing those heavy rains more and more. And the thing is, it's really sad, but it's not going to stop tomorrow. It's only going to increase. So parks like this are really good because they catch the rainwater and they store it. So it gives a chance to the sewers to release the pressure.
So when we're walking through the park, you can see all these beautiful different types of flowers. How beneficial are these flowers to insects?
Oh, absolutely. So what you can notice here is that this is also a retention pond. And the thing with water management in resilient places is that you can match those two issues together. So all those flowers that you talked about are so important for insects, right? So you can really mix the biodiversity increase with water management. So every time you see a park like this, all this vegetation really helps to decreasing the heat.
And to activate the sprinklers, it's pretty simple. Just push on this button and all the water comes up. When it's sunny or gloomy like this, it's a great day to use the playground. But when it's raining, the sponge park is actually doing its job.
Those parks really work with every other measures that we're putting in the city. So it's really a dynamic of everything that is underground and everything that is above ground. So the more parks we have like this, and the more resilient the city will become.
Kubino Duro, CBC News, Montreal.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
We overspend and overcook, which is disastrous for our wallets and the planet. That's a lot of waste.
May I guess your taste? Not wrong to have ambition.
Don't let fear hold you back.
Your job is to discover the mystery dessert.
What is it? What is it?
Raspberries.
Dark chocolate.
I think I got it. Woo!
You don't let them win.
You're gonna see things you never forget.
We look so beautiful together.
You are our tomorrow.
Hey, want to eat lunch with us? Guys, I'm not that hungry.
What Canadian creature is often a villain in fairy tales? Likes to talk to its family a lot. Hunts in large packs for big animals. And is a close cousin to dogs. If you guessed the wolf, you're right. These mighty hunters are quite shy of people and fill an important role in nature. To learn more about wolves, visit our website at hww.ca.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
We will always protect and defend all NATO allies.
Some people have lost everything.
Sundays, join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
Physical activity decreases tension, so you can unwind better.
making show is back.
And the winner is...
Alan, no, it's too soon for that.
How about now?
Give me that.
Okay.
Get the news you need without restrictions. Download the free CBC News app